So, people say, if you got a rock and a stick, that's what you'll do.
I've never heard anyone say that.
Yeah. That's what they'll say, man. Like 2 sticks and a gun can't make biscuits.
No, I've heard someone say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an old-time saying from way back in the historic times of days.
Yeah, speaking of historic times, the Ed, we're going to start a new segment on the show, History with the Ed, or the Ed's History Lessons or something, where you're just going to pick a famous incident that happened in history, and you're just going to talk about it and teach people about it. Because you're a wise man, and you know a lot, right?
I know what happened. I mean, I went to school a bunch of times. I got so many degrees, you would think it's, like, impossible.
Yeah, you got one in, like, human language, utensilry, spelling.
Mm-hmm. Kitchen utensilry.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, kitchen utensilry. I think something to do with science. You have something there.
I got them all.
Yeah. And you paid good hard money for them, too.
Yeah, some of them cost more than others.
Yeah. So would you like to, what about just something like George Washington? Would you like to tell the people about George Washington, like he was the first president, and they always said he cut down on tree when he was a kid?
He was only first president because of the other guy, Richard Wallace.
Richard Wallace.
Yeah, Richard Wallace. You know about Richard Wallace.
No, I'm not aware.
Did I tell you about him?
No.
Yeah, back a long time ago. See, listen. When they was talking about doing this president thing, they was going to make George Washington the king. Well, Richard Wallace was his buddy. But Richard Wallace was more popular than George Washington was at the time. So Richard Wallace, it was like, Richard, you and George, man, you guys should be running this place, be the king, and, and the vice king or whatever. And Richard's like, nah, man, I don't like being on TV and stuff like that. He's like, George is always like that, But Richard wrote everything for George to say. Well, George was like, George had all the long white hair. Richard didn't have no hair. He had on glasses. They were made out of real glass. And one time, he had fell, and left eye got cut out. So Richard only had one eye. They were like, man, the king, we can't have a one-eyed king. And that's why on the playing cards they got a one-eyed jet. That's Richard Wallace.
This makes no sense whatsoever.
That's what I'm saying. He's the one-eyed jet. That's Richard. Now,
so
when they were deciding about... Huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
When they were deciding about how we was going to decide stuff, they said, man, we don't want to have no king because we don't want to be like England. So Richard said, let's be a king. Let's be a king. George said, man, I can't be no king. I don't want to be like England. Richard said, what you want to do? George said, I don't know. I ain't never heard nothing but a king. George said, what about being a president? George said, what the heck is a president? Richard said, that's what I'm saying. You got to be the president. Because won't no one know what your boundaries is. You be the man with the golden voice. You'll be better known as the lady's choice. And then everything you do will be everything that you can be. So George said, yeah, but we got to find a dummy for me to run against, man. Make it seem like it's legit. Richard said, listen, don't worry about that, man. I only got one eye, but I got 2 brains. So he went over.
Like Steve Martin?
Yeah. That's why he was super smart.
Okay.
So he went on. They made this thing with this proclamation of election nations. And they said, hey, we're going to have a vote. They went around Kinko's, made all these, like, flyers and stuff.
Wow.
They had all this stuff made up.
Kinko's was around back then,
Wasn't called Kinko's back then.
Oh, okay.
But it's something sort of like it for their day. But they had all these flyers. And, there was only like 1,800 people in America at that time. So they made about 1,500 flyers. They had a few people they knew wasn't going to vote. So they made all these flyers up. they badmouthed this other guy, man. It was, man, like, Roy, somebody was running against him.
Yeah.
But Richard Wallace made it. He was the first campaign manager of America. And George Washington became president because of this man. He won the election. Out of 1,500 votes, George Washington got 1,450.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And then they always talk about, it's like when they had a thing on TV, they was doing like the, debates and all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, George Washington, did you cut down the cherry tree? Richard Wallace tell him in his ear through the little headphones, he's like, tell him I cannot tell a lie. He said, I cannot tell a lie. I did chop down that cherry tree. So it was our Richard, man. So
Richard
really,
Wallace.
Richard, if he wouldn't have lost his eye and stupid glasses, he would be first president ever. But now they just commemorate him as the one-eyed Jack in a deck of cards.
Wow. Thanks, Ed. I never knew any of that, so that's very educational.
Well, that's what happens. And people want to tell you that they don't know about it, but they do.